What's up, vape fam? Sorteal here, and welcome to the Vaporworks Lab. 2022 was an absolutely stellar year for vape hardware releases. Whether you were into Boro bridges, Boro devices, mechanical mods, RDAs, RTAs, or DTAs, didn't really matter. There was going to be multiple killer releases that came out in 2022. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to go over my best of 2022. All of these were released within that year. It's not going to be like what I reviewed in 2022 because early on, a few of the reviews were actually products that were released in late 2021. So like I said, all of these came out in 2022. Start out with Boro bridges, and basically how I'm going to do this is I'm going to give you my top 2, maybe 3 choices. I think in RDAs it's 4 or 5, but for the most part it's going to be just my top 2 or 3. That way, kind of let you guys know what I think is the top tier in each category and maybe make your decision on what to get a little bit easier. So Boro bridges, here we come. My number 2 favorite Boro bridge of 2022 is the atemporal Boro bridge. This is just an amazing bridge. Uses mesh wicking rods and they work extremely well, sometimes almost too well. If you have it, filled almost all the way up and you let it sit, it can actually oversaturate your cotton a little bit. I like the metal slide here for the fill port instead of a rubber stopper. It has top airflow, which makes using kind of a standard Boro device panel a little tricky because the airflow gets super restrictive. Luckily, Damn Vape knew this was an issue, and when you bought it, you got top airflow cutout panels. Only problem with it was that it was hard to use. Panels maybe that you got that were custom, or panels that you had that you really liked that were not top airflow. Really, its only downside. All right. My number 1 favorite Boro bridge of 2022 is easily the Ponte. This comes from Orca Vape and Mr. Just Right 1, and it is an amazing Boro bridge. It is mesh, and I personally think that Boro bridges are basically tailor-made for mesh. This works just extremely well. It has stainless steel wicking rods that work great, keeps your cotton saturated. The flavor off this is just through the roof. Best flavor out of a Boro bridge I've ever come across. Also, having that kind of RDTA style with the top airflow, you may think you need panels like this, and it does work extremely well with panels such as these, but you don't have to have that. Basically, what they did was they realized that most people had just standard Boro panels, so they actually indented the sides of the Boro bridge itself, so airflow can actually kind of flow in from the bottom there, travel up the side, and get to the top. So with the Ponte, even though it's top airflow, you can use whatever panel you choose. All right, let's take a look at Boro devices. Now, I already showed you basically my number 2 favorite Boro device. I'm not going to go over Mech Boro devices basically because there was only a couple that I tried within 2022, and one of them I really didn't like. The other one I will say is the Ravine, and it's easily my favorite mechanical Boro device out there. But as far as regulated devices go, my second favorite of the year is this right here, the Pulse AIO 0.5. It basically fixed all the issues that the original Pulse AIO had. This whole top section here, if I can get the drip tip off, they added that metal plate so there's no longer any kind of cracking issues. They changed up the style a little bit as far as the button. You can do round or square. It also makes contact with bridges a lot better. I'm not sure what they did there, or if it just has to do with the kind of changed up flush nut threading. Whatever it is, this makes better contact than the original Pulse AIO. But by far my favorite Boro device of 2022 and my favorite Boro device period has to be the Stubby. This is the 18650 version. I do not have the 21700 version of this, but this is just what a Boro device is supposed to be. It has top airflow and bottom airflow, so you don't really have to worry about different custom panels. will fit standard Boro bridges, or of course the large stubby bridge, which I also like, and that would probably be my number 3 in Boro bridge releases of 2022. This is also separate as far as the board is separated from the battery and separated from where the actual bridge is. Also, the board that's in here is no solder, so you can take it out, put a new one in with just a few screws. That's it. You don't have to solder anything. And I love that concept, because my biggest issue with regulated devices is eventually the board or one of the chips burns out entirely, and then now you have basically $100 to $200 paperweight. Not the case with the stubby, because you can just swap that board out for a new one extremely easily and you're good to go. All right, next up, let's take a look at RDTAs. Now, there were several RDTA releases within 2022, which was kind of shocking. Normally it's kind of 1, 2, 3 maybe, but in 2022 there was just a ton of them that were released. Let's take a look at my top 2 favorite. Number 2 is easily the Helheim S30. Now, when I first saw this thing, I was a little curious about it, as far as I didn't think it would work that well, basically because it's so large. And it uses those stainless steel wicking rods, which sometimes don't work that well on a 25mm RDTA. But with this one, they work absolutely beautifully. Flavor off this is outstanding. I love the dual airflow control. You get plenty of airflow. It's easy to dial in the exact pull that you want. And those stainless steel wicking rods work extremely well. I've never had a problem with this as far as dry hits or undersaturated cotton hits. It's always fully saturated, and I just don't have any issues. But I also do, with an RDTA, drip pretty regularly. If you're someone that wants to use an RDTA and never drip, get an RTA, because that's not what our DTAs are all about. All right, my favorite RDTA of 2022, probably a surprise to no one, is the nitrous 24mm RDA with tank, which is a silly name. It's an RDTA. It's the nitrous RDTA. That's what it is. Uses mesh wicking rods like the atemporal. I love that, because they work so much better than stainless steel wicking rods. Having the small tank that it does, they work just beautifully. This is kind of one of those where you could fill the tank up and just drip with this thing and not really worry about it. The tank would just keep your cotton saturated. You wouldn't have to worry about setting it down for too long, and then you go to take a pull and you forgot to drip. This would be perfectly fine because of those mesh wicking rods and having that small tank. Other cool thing is it is squonkable, so you can kind of refill the tank just by hitting the squonk bottle there with the included squonk pin. Flavor off this is absolutely phenomenal. Easily the best RDTA release of 2022, and probably one of the best RDTA releases over the last several years. All right, let's take a look at RTAs. Now, if you're a fan of the channel, you know I don't really like RTAs all that much, but 2022 really kind of tested that idea with me that I don't like RTAs, because there's been several that I really like. I do want to throw out an honorable mention to the Dead Rabbit 3 RTA. I really like that RTA. It works extremely well, but my top 3 picks are just even better than that. So my number 3 out of the top RTAs of 2022 is the nitrous RTA. I love this thing. It has some of the best flavor for an RTA I've ever come across. It has a bunch of cool extras you can get as far as an extension, bigger glass sections with more liquid. It goes all the way from, I believe, 2 or 3 mils all the way up to 5.5 milliliters if you get the bubble glass with the extension. The airflow on it is just like the nitrous 22mm. That is what this is, a 22mm single coil RTA, and it works just amazingly well. The wicking is a little, takes a little getting used to, because it's just different than a lot of other RTAs out there. But once you get it down, you will not want to put this RTA down, because the flavor and the pull off of it are just so good. All right, my number 2 RTA of 2022 comes from Thunderhead Creations and Mike Vapes. It is the Blaze RTA. This thing has just spectacular flavor. It's easy to build, it's easy to wick, and it just works amazingly well. I've never gotten any kind of dry hit. The flavor off of it is pretty close to using an RDA, and actually better than a lot of RDAs that are out there. It just has spectacular flavor, spectacular airflow, no problem building and wicking this thing. It just does what an RTA is supposed to do. All right, my number 1 RTA of 2022 is also my favorite RTA ever made, and it is the Fatality M25 Remastered. This thing is just an RTA done to perfection. It's easy to build, easy to wick, and it wicks spectacularly well. Having that juice flow control is just amazing. If you happen to maybe under wick it a little bit, you can cut that juice flow control, stop your deck from flooding. If you over wick it a little bit, you can crank that thing wide open and it will wick just fine. Flavor off of it is the best I've ever had off of an RTA, and having that dual bottom airflow there works just spectacular. A lot of times you'll see with dual airflow, it'll have one that is kind of to the side and the other one that is up from below. This has bottom airflow, but then also kind of bottom side airflow, and it just creates a spectacular flavor out of this RTA. If you do not have the Fatality M25 Remastered, you should definitely pick this one up. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at mechanical mods before we jump into RDAs. And my third favorite mechanical mod release of 2022 is easily the Zero SQ from Zero Mods. This is a mech squonker that is 3D printed. It has all silver contacts inside. All of this is silver plated. It just has absolutely amazing conductivity. It hits hard as hell, and it just works so well. The fact that the bottle is open on both sides allows you to kind of pinch the bottle instead of pushing back. You get a lot better saturation of your cotton being able to do that, and it just feels extremely satisfying. This thing works amazingly well. If you have not checked out Zero Mods, you are missing out big time. You should definitely hit Tony P up, check out Zero Mods, especially the Zero SQ. All right, my second favorite mechanical mod release of 2022 comes from Vaporworks Lab, and it is the 1111 Reborn. I love this thing. I think the switch looks just phenomenal. I love all that clockwork design that's to it, and I love the feel of it. The switch just feels so good. It reminds me of the Dreamer or the Keen in kind of its design and the overall feel to it. It's just smooth as butter. There's no crunchiness, no clickiness. And I like how this one, even though it's not technically telescopic, it kind of opens and closes like a telescopic mechanical mod would. It only takes 21/700s. I do believe you can do an 18650 with an adapter, but this is not going to kind of change the height of this based on the battery type that you're using. It's only telescopic in the way that it kind of comes apart. It's reminiscent of a telescopic mechanical mod, but it is not truly telescopic. This thing looks great inside and out. It comes with 3 different top cap rings for various size atomizers, from 24-25 millimeter all the way up to 30 millimeter atomizers. And no matter what you stick on this, it just looks phenomenal. Hits crazy hard. I like the weight to it too. I like a good heavy mechanical mod, and this is definitely one of the best heavy mechanical mods probably ever released. It also has a stack section to it that actually kind of connects right there in the middle. I love that. And that stack section already has the spacer chip built into it, so you don't have kind of a little spacer that you could easily lose, and then all of a sudden your stack section is pretty much worthless. It's built right into the stack section, so you don't have to worry about any of that. Definitely an amazing mechanical mod, and if you don't own one and you like mechanical mods, you should definitely go pick up an 1111 Reborn. All right, my top pick for mechanical mod of 2022 is probably a surprise to no one. It is the Chaos Mechanical Mod from Silvercraft Creations over in the Philippines. This one is T6 aluminum done up in orange. Love the look of this. The machine etching to it is just amazing, but the functionality is what really makes this thing my favorite mechanical mod of 2022. Side fire mechanism works extremely well, and this thing hits like a ton of bricks. I like how the bottom battery contact is kind of lined in Ultim. That way, no matter how hot that battery contact gets, you can still easily unscrew it because the Ultim's just not going to get anywhere near that hot. Top plate here also has machine etching, but you can take this entire top plate off if you want to really give your mechanical mod a good deep cleaning. There's Delrin lining around that top cap there, so I love that. It just vapes so well. It's so comfortable in the hand, and it looks just absolutely gorgeous. If you liked the Atlas, this is basically its classier little brother. It's extremely hard. So yes, the Chaos Mechanical Mod, easily my favorite mech mod release of 2022. All right. Go ahead and look at my favorite RDAs. Now, this was extremely hard for me to pick because I love RDAs so much. So I kind of expanded out from doing my top 2 or 3 to more like my top 4, maybe 5. I can't remember how many I got over here. It looks like 4. We'll do 4. This is my top 4 RDAs of 2022. All right. My number 4 favorite RDA of 2022 is easily the Valhalla V2 Micro. Now this thing just has flavor through the frickin' roof. Now I've always been a big fan of the Valhalla deck, but the atomizers are so large that they've really just not been my speed. I mean, even the Mini is 30 millimeters. So when I heard that Vaporworks Lab was going to do a 25 millimeter version of the Valhalla V2, I was definitely interested. This thing wicks and builds so easily. It has amazing flavor, and a lot of times with undercoil airflow of an RDA, the ability to kind of adjust that airflow is a little bit tricky because sometimes you can actually cut it down too much by just closing the airflow off even a little bit. So you end up with either a really tight pull or a really airy pull. But with the inclusion of the airflow insert that's in here, that airflow is constantly channeled exactly where it needs to go, and cutting that airflow down gives you a lot more options for various styles of pull off of the atomizer. It's just an amazing RDA that you should definitely check out. All right, let's take a look at my third favorite RDA release of 2022, and it is the TMF V2. This comes from Damn Vape and the Mind Flayer, and this is an absolutely phenomenal RDA that kind of came out of nowhere. I just happened to be looking on Damn Vape's site when they posted this, knew nothing about the V1, but I went ahead and ordered this one up just based on how it looks and the deck design. Kind of lets the coils dangle down in front of the airflow. I loved that concept. As a big deep juice well. The airflow I was a little worried about because it is slotted airflow, and I'm normally not a fan of that. But this has kind of that small middle divide, and that cuts down on any kind of whistling or any type of rough airflow. It actually works amazingly well. I've not had it whistle, anything like that at all. Also, the openings are relatively thin for being just open slotted airflow, but it works extremely well for this. Flavor off this is spectacular. It works just phenomenally well on a mechanical mod. The drip tip here is kind of like the Wrath, where you can unscrew just the top Delrin piece. They do sell a kit that has a ton of different colors, which is very unlike the Wrath. I was always curious if the Wrath was ever going to release the various colors by themselves, and they never did. So if you wanted all the various colors for that drip tip, you would have to buy every different style of Wrath RDA. But with this one, they do have the kit. It's not quite as comfortable as a lot of other kind of standard 810 drip tips, but I've gotten used to it over my time with it, And now I don't really change it out for various drip tips too often. I really just leave this one on there and change the color out depending on what device I have it on. All right, so as far as 2 and 1, they are so close. It was really hard, and I'm giving 1 the spot that it gets because of really something that hasn't been tapped into, but we'll get to that. Let's take a look at my number 2 favorite RDA release of 2022, and it is the Danny V2 Mini. This is a 25mm version of the original Danny V2. It has the same deck, just kind of shrunk down. But if you were someone that did not like the Danny V2 with 2.5 or 3mm ID coils, this solves all of those issues, period. Just kind of put your coils in, slam them close to the deck, have the coil close to the outer edge of the block, and the flavor off this rivals even the Asgard Mini. Pull off of it is spectacular. It has nice, smooth airflow, and it is just constructed amazingly well. The deck on this thing, if you watch my review, it just shines to a mirror finish. All of the machining is great on this. All the threading is buttery smooth. One of the best built RDAs that I've come across in quite a while. Love this thing. All right, so like I said, it was extremely hard to decide between this one and what I'm going to say is my number 1 favorite RDA of 2022. Don't get me wrong, this one I absolutely love to death. It is an amazing RDA, but it's winning out over the Danny V2 Mini only because it has amazing potential, but it's potential that has not been tapped at all yet, and I'm not sure it's ever going to be. It comes from Coil Turd. It is an RDA for vaping V2. Now this improved on the original RDA for vaping in practically every single way. Now has a quick release top cap so you can see exactly where your coils are lined up there. If you're the kind that likes to pop and paint, this is even easier. Also allows you to take your AFC ring off, and the coolest thing about this RDA is when you take the AFC ring off, the actual whole airflow mechanism comes with it. It's not like the original RDA for vaping where it was just a ring that covered up the 3 holes that were already there built in to the outer wall of the deck itself. This, you're taking the entire airflow system with you. So it left the potential to do all kinds of different AFC rings. You could have done one that these kind of indentions come even farther in, and it would be more like a compressed chamber to do a single coil type of vape experience. You could do honeycomb airflow. You could mimic the kind of 3-hole design of the original. There was just a ton of different AFC rings that could be done with this one. But as of yet, Beecher has not done that at all, and I'm a little shocked by that. But it may just be something that he's not interested in doing, period, or he doesn't think for some reason that it would work very well or that many people would be interested in it. But I think if it did have those various AFC rings, this would probably be the best RDA ever made because it would have so much versatility, amazing flavor, easy to build, easy to wick. Nothing would even come close. But as it is, it's still an absolutely phenomenal fucking RDA. It has outstanding flavor, easy to build, easy to wick. Like I said, it improves upon the original in absolutely every way. But if they were just never going to come out with various AFC rings for this, I would probably pick the Danny V2 Mini over an RDA for vaping V2, honestly. But its potential still has me thinking this is probably one of the best RDAs ever made, period. And like I said, vapor production and flavor is absolutely through the roof. All right, guys, that's it. That is my best of 2022. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope maybe for a few of you that were on the fence about a particular atomizer, mech mod, Boro bridge, Boro device, maybe this made that decision a little bit easier for you, because that's really what best of lists are all about, is kind of being able to show you here is the things I really recommend that you go out and get if you are kind of on the fence about what to do. I will say one thing, a lot of people seem to think that rebuildables, mechanical mods, things like that are kind of slowly dying out, but I think 2021 and 2022 had just a ton of releases, especially if you look at Boro bridges, which are rebuildables. There have been just an amazing amount of releases the last 2 years. Not to mention the quality of all those releases. There are very few rebuildables that have come out that I just think are absolute garbage. Whereas back in kind of the heyday when everyone was releasing rebuildables, 2015, 2016, 2017, there was a ton of garbage getting released all the time. If you want to sell a rebuildable anymore, it has to be pretty damn good quality. So I think we kind of traded quantity for quality, but rebuildables and mechanical mods have not gone anywhere, and I think they're the one kind of vape device that is able to weather a lot of this kind of government pressure, government storm, health organizations that are coming after vaping even when they have absolutely zero scientific evidence to back up their claims. But with that said, it does seem like recently science is slowly winning out. It's kind of slowly showing everything that these groups have been saying, and the arguments being made by politicians to clamp down heavier on vaping has no scientific basis to them at all. It's recently, there's been a lot of studies that have kind of made a lot of these organizations do a dramatic shift in their stance and what they're saying, basically ignoring things that they've said in the past completely. And that is just going to continue to happen. But regardless of that kind of pressure that comes in from government or health organization, rebuildables, mechanical mods, these are going to be the things that weather the storm, because these are the things that are made and designed by us, the vape community. You do see a ton of pod systems, disposables, things like that. But rebuildables, mechanical mods, these are the things that are going to weather all of these hysterical storms, as I like to call them, that are going on. But hopefully, at the end of the day, science wins out and we shut a lot of these people down. All right, guys, that's it. Vape on, and I will catch you all in the next one.